Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Kirsten here, and you are watching A Better Way with Kirsten podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube or if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, this is also A Better Way with Kirsten podcast. In all of these platforms, you can show your support. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can leave this video a thumbs up. There's a little icon at the bottom. So leave it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so yet, because that way you will get a notification every time when I post a new video. And if you are listening to it on Apple Podcast or Spotify, there you can leave me a 5-star rating and a review. And that's super helpful because that will help more people to find the show, because the shows that have more ratings will be pushed up higher, more people will find it. That's how it works. So if you could do me this little favor, that would be really, really very much appreciated. On this podcast, I'm sharing with you some tools to recover from chronic sensations that are mind body sensations. And that means that if you have a chronic symptom or other sensation and nobody has been able to figure out where this is coming from, why you're having this, many doctors, medical professionals that you've seen have given you answers that don't give you any clarity because they say that this could be this thing, this could be this other thing, could be the third thing. You've tried out so many different modalities and treatments, but you haven't gotten any relief. Then there's a really good chance that you might be dealing with something called TMS. And it means that your sensations are actually not physical. There's nothing wrong in your physical body, but the problems are coming from the brain and nervous system. And this is called TMS. This term is from Dr. John Sarno, who started talking about this decades ago, and his work has been continued by many, many other great people. And the idea here is that we can let go of this fear. There's nothing wrong with us physically, but we have to work with the mind and with the emotions, and a lot of times with personality traits too, which is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about one of them today so that we can heal from these chronic sensations. But of course, it is important that you have been checked out by a practitioner or healthcare practitioner, so we know that there's nothing structurally wrong with you, like you don't have any problems with your organs or muscles or ligaments or any of that. So a lot of times with TMS, it is true that you have been checked out several times, but nobody knows what this is. It's kind of like a mystery illness that you're dealing with. Maybe you have pain and all the MRIs are clean, or they show just some very mild things that are nothing abnormal. And so you're confused. So in these cases, there's a very good chance that this is something called TMS. And what I'm sharing with you on this podcast is a lot of it is based on my own personal experience with low back pain for so many years. And of course, from my experience, working with reading different resources, learning this topic a lot, working with coaches and so on. So I want to share with you what I have learned, and hopefully you can find some relief from these things as well. Today, like I said, we're going to address one personality trait that is contributing to your symptoms, and this is perfectionism. A lot of people who have chronic sensations are very perfectionistic people, and they think that they have to do certain things extremely well. There's no room for error. If they make a mistake, they make like a really big deal out of it. They are very hard on themselves. They can't forgive themselves. They think that this was like a huge, huge thing and they will never be forgiven, or everybody will always be talking about it. And they just cannot find peace when they do make a mistake somewhere. And they are just constantly pushing themselves to do more and to do better. And the problem here is that you can almost never do things perfectly. Maybe in some areas of life it can be valuable, but not in all of these areas of life where a lot of people are pushing and forcing themselves, some even like tiny, tiny, insignificant things. Like people think that they have to be absolutely perfect and that they're not allowed to make any mistakes. And this is a very common thing, like I said, in people who have these TMS symptoms and sensations. They have this personality trait. They are pressuring themselves so hard and then beating themselves up so hard too if they don't live up to their own expectations. And this is like really story of my life too, pressuring myself very hard and putting a tremendous amount of stress on myself, both physically and mentally, has been something that, it happened for a long time and still unlearning this habit. But I definitely, I'm person, not a person, I'm person, not a person who is a perfectionist in all areas of life. It's like certain things, but in certain areas it can get very intense. And then I don't really care like if I make a mistake in an email or if I, made it like a little grammar error or if my English is perfect. Like all of these things have kind of faded away because I realized that they are not so important. But when I first started my online business was like almost 10 years ago, I was really worried and I had my husband check every one of my blog posts because I wanted to make sure that, I cannot make a mistake there. And then over the years, I started just like letting go of that perfectionism and understanding that I don't have to be perfect with this. I guess people understand what I'm trying to say, so it's okay if I make a mistake somewhere here. So little by little, things have gotten easier, but there's still certain areas where letting go of this perfectionism is still difficult. And I think it's very important to work with it so that we don't put this unnecessary pressure on ourselves because with that pressure also comes chronic sensations. And I want to give you a little bit more uh, kind of share about my story and where the perfectionism has come up is years of really terrible relationship with food since my early 20s to mid to end of my 20s. Had really, really disordered eating habits because my goal was to be as thin as I possibly could, lose a lot of weight. So I used very restrictive diet and lots of training. So if you have been listener for maybe even a couple of years, you know this story already. So I'm not going to make it very long here, but do want to say that this pressure that I put on myself was really, really hard. It was so much. And I wanted to do everything perfectly. My running had to be perfect. It had to be done at a perfect time, in a perfect way. I couldn't miss a day. My eating had to look like a certain way. It was very, very disordered looking back. And this was one way of like me putting so much pressure on myself because deep inside I wasn't happy with the way I was myself. I thought that if I can change my body, I will be happier. But of course, I created myself a lot of hormonal issues and these like problems with food that then the severe restriction then ended up with like binging episodes. So it became a total mess because it started from this place of like, I'm not good enough and have to be perfect with my body. I have to have this perfect body. So I did a lot of these things. Obviously, were not healthy. So for you, maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the way you eat or the way you train. But for you, perfectionism can come out in so many other ways in your life too. But the problem is still the same. You put so much pressure on yourself, and if you have TMS sensations or symptoms or pains, and you are perfectionist, then your perfectionism is a big problem there. This is why you have these sensations. You're never happy with yourself. And I want to give you one example from one of the interactions that I had where this perfectionism really comes out. So I have my training program. It's called Train to Build, and it is meant for people who had TMS for a long time or maybe still having it, but they want to get back to exercise. And exercising, it's, this program is a strength training program. It is very doable. It's mild. It's very gentle. It is not like hyping up your nervous system. It's not like you have to watch this instructor and like follow along and it's like loud music and lights and it's nothing like that. It's very mellow. It's very gentle, but it is very good because it will help you get stronger physically. And what's the most important thing, really, why I created this program is that it will help you to see that you are capable of of exercising. Again, coming back to this episode that I did with Lise Kukkonen, who's a physical therapist, and I was talking about TMS, she said it's so important for people with these conditions to do some movement, do some exercise so that they can see that what I'm capable of, I can move, I have good quality of life, I can be healthy and fit that way. And that's why I created this program too. Again, it's Train to Build Starter. So this is the starter level. If you're in higher level already, you can look up my program, Train to Build. They both are linked in the show notes. But with the starter program, the workouts there are about at first they're about 20 minutes, and toward the end of the program, we're able to increase the duration, the length. Then they're going to be about 40 minutes long. And I had a conversation about it with somebody, and she said, I do want to sign up. I'm interested in it, but I can't do it because I don't have 40 minutes a day. You know, it's 3 times a day, 3 times a week, 40 minutes each time, 3 times 40 minutes, right? Per week. And okay, I said, okay, sure. Um, so what time do you have available? And she said I could do like 20 minutes every day, but I actually just don't have 40-minute chunk in a day. And I said, sure, you can split this workout up, this 40-minute workout, you can split it up and do 20 minutes on Monday, 20 minutes on Tuesday, right? Somebody else would do all 40 minutes on Monday. And I said, it's absolutely fine because it's still the same workout. You're not losing anything. And she said, no, I can't do this because then it wouldn't be perfect anymore. It wouldn't be the same way that as you laid it out. And I cannot then sign up. And now this is a perfect example, perfect example. Speaking of perfectionism, this is a really great example of how perfectionism is holding you back. So now we're choosing to not do any exercise because we cannot do the workout exactly as it was laid out, even though if you split it into two parts, you would get exactly the same workout out of it. So these are the ways how perfectionism really gets in your way because now you're doing nothing. So really, this is something that you have to start paying attention to and become more relaxed around this stuff. Be like, that's okay if I don't do it perfectly. It's gonna be all right. I've also heard from people who are in my training programs, let's say I give them an exercise and do it for like 12 reps and they can sometimes be very worried and send me a message, oh, I did only 9. And I'm like, that's okay because you don't have to be perfect with it. If you felt after the 9th rep that I'm getting tired, I need a break, you're going to take a break. You're going to be imperfect and you're not going to need a permission. You don't need permission for that from me. You can do what you're going to do, right? Of course, you're not going to completely change the whole workout plan and do completely like your own thing. Then what's the point of getting the program in the first place? But you can make adjustments like that. You can listen to your body. For example, if you have, let's say you have a like intense period pain, as like a lot of women do on the first day, and it was supposed to be their workout day, you can take a break that day and not do the workout and be okay with the fact that even though I planned to do a workout on the Monday, this Monday just didn't work out because I had this pain. Or you had something happen at work and you couldn't make the workout, you just didn't do it that day because they got totally busy. Then you're just going to do it another day and tell yourself this is going to be absolutely fine. It is fine. So overthinking these little things is actually not good for us because it's just so limiting. It puts us in the box like, oh, I can't do anything a little bit slightly different because then I won't be perfect. And then the story follows what all that means, that I'm not a good person, right? I'm not good enough. Oh my God, I messed things up. You start telling these stories, which is all negative self-talk, and it's not helping with your TMS. So coming back to why we're even talking about this, try to be perfect at everything. It's just putting so much pressure on you, and you have to stop doing this. You have to relax. And I recommend that you start with some small things, right? Like, okay, the program said 12 reps, I'm going to do 10. Didn't die, right? It did nothing bad happen. Like, no consequence followed because I did something a little bit different that wasn't quote unquote perfect. You can try this with anything in your life where you think that things have to be only done in a certain way. Start even on purpose, like doing it a little differently, doing it imperfectly, and get more evidence that nothing bad will happen, right? So in my case that I used previously, like the blog posts, I then started little by little not asking my husband's help, like checking every little word that I wrote. If I sent out an email and realized later that I made a mistake, I was like, that's okay. Okay, it happens. Like everybody makes mistakes. You just have to soften it a little bit and understand that there's nothing so big that could happen from you being a little bit imperfect. And coming back to working out again, I'm gonna give you another example. So this week, I've been watching the Olympics. So by the time this episode airs, the Olympics will be over. But I've been listening, or I've been watching it a lot. And because the Olympics are in Rome and I am in the US, then the time difference is very big. And I've been up because I'm just a big fan of track and field and I want to see that stuff, right? And a lot of times I've been up like at 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. And how do I then change my workouts? Do I still go and do the workouts that I typically do? No, a lot of times I actually, excuse me, a lot of times I do less. I do less because I'm like, well, I'm more tired. I've been up way longer than usual. And I don't have to push myself to lift so heavy weights or do all the reps because that would make me even more exhausted. And I don't need that. So I'm going to be imperfect here, do a little bit less, give it a little bit less energy, maybe use dumbbells instead of barbells. Just find ways to modify according to what feels better for my body. Just accept it and move on. I really think that it's useful to think like, what do you think that would really happen if you are imperfect? If you change the workout slightly, if you do make a little mistake in an email, what is it really that's going to happen from it? And can you handle it? Can you then handle it? Because you can. Whatever it is, you can handle it. So start kind of softening your the way you're thinking, the way you think that all the things that might follow from you making a mistake, start kind of softening and telling yourself, it's gonna be all right. It's absolutely gonna be all right. I don't have to be perfect. And when you soften the way you think about it, then also a lot of times you're eliminating that pressure or lowering the pressure in your body to push and force and power through. And then your brain starts to get the message as well. It doesn't have to be so tense and so like hyper aware and hyper vigilant. That can soften too. And that can then lead to your symptoms to go down as well. So really pay attention to your perfectionism habits and behaviors and try to chill a little bit more. I know it can be harder to do, it can be pretty easy to say, but like I said before too, like start playing around with simple things that really don't make a big difference. Start playing around, start like intentionally being like, I'm gonna be imperfect with this. I'm gonna do this a little differently. And through that, you get evidence that nothing bad happened. You're still totally fine. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to learn more about the Train to Build starter that I mentioned in today's episode too, please go ahead and check it out in my show notes. And if you want to get a free taste of how simple body weight workouts work and how you can get started with them, even if you have TMS, go ahead and get my 14-day free course, Strong and Sensitive, also linked in the show notes. And finally, also my program, Emotionally Fit, is there in the show notes too. This is all about emotional discovery so that you can start getting relief from your chronic sensations. All right. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you, and I talk to you again very soon. Take care.